What's up, everyone? Today we have a great interview. She is an author, homeschool mom, 10 kids. We go into her health journey at the end about how she lost 90 pounds in a year. We talk about history and how important it is to bring your kids out into the world. We talk about her kids, the different learning styles they have. Beth, what you have for this one?
I loved how she shared some really interesting facts about history and then also her health journey that was really interesting and just the
Mhm.
support and encouragement she provides for homeschooling families. It was great.
It was a good one. All right, we'll see you guys inside. What's up, everyone? Today I'm super excited for the interview we have. Can you just give a second and just give a background of first how many kids you have, what you do, and then kind of how you got introduced into homeschooling?
Yeah. So I'm Tricia Goyer. I've been married to John for 36 years. I was
Congrats.
really a teen mom, and then I prayed for my future husband, and God brought me John. Then we
Nice.
had two more kids, and then we adopted seven. So we have,
Wow.
yeah, our oldest is 37. He just turned 37, and our youngest is 15. So I'm still homeschooling, still parenting, still staying in the middle of everything. Yeah,
So let me ask you a question. Did you homeschool your oldest right from the beginning, or did
I
he go to?
did.
You did.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
so he went to preschool.
okay.
Because this is like homeschool. This is back in the early 90s. This is really age back in the early 90s. So not a lot of people were homeschooling, like it was not common at all. We knew some people, but he went to regular preschool. And like there I just saw because you had to volunteer one day a week to go to for your kids to go, you had to volunteer one day a
Okay.
week. And I just saw they were just basically ushering them from place to place. Like it wasn't they weren't allowed to be creative, at least this preschool during that time. They weren't like, okay, it's block time. Okay, it's craft time. Like they and I was just like, you know what, I could do I was only 22 or something, but I'm like, I could do better than this. And so
Mhm.
we had friends that had homeschooled, and I really
Okay.
liked how their teenagers were. So they were really like some of the first pioneers, and their teens would like interact with me as an adult, and they'd want to hold my baby. It was just like so different than other
Mhm.
teens who were moody and off doing their own things. And so that really just made me like, oh, okay, if I want teens like this, so I started when my oldest was Corey, when he was like 4, then I started homeschooling, and I had him and his little sister was 2 and a newborn baby. So uh,
Okay.
now they're in their 30s. They're all adults and doing awesome.
That's amazing.
Nice. I love that. Now, when you guys decided, because it was so early, and then it's not today, it's kind of everyone's homeschooling, in some
Yeah.
sort of way, and there's different ways you can do it, and some people have different preferences. But when you guys decide to take that leap, did you face any backlash from your community or your family, or did you have support the whole time?
Yeah, we actually had moved like about 1,000 miles away from the town I grew up in. So there wasn't any like grandparents or anyone close to us. They were just like, "What are you doing?" But so the new community that we were in, that became our community, like other parents like us. And so,
Okay.
and this was again, I'm aging myself, but it was before Instagram, before Facebook. So once a week or every couple of weeks, we would go to co-op, and that was really the only time you got to compare. Like, oh,
Hmm.
they're doing this, or what are they doing? So really, there was so much freedom because it was just us at home with our books,
Yep.
So I would order this curriculum, we would do that, but mostly we just went to the library like every week. We checked out tons of books. We um made stuff together. We really just enjoyed that time, which I'm really thankful we had that time because now
Hmm.
you're on Instagram and this family's doing this, and then they're showing their cute little snacks that they're making for their kids. Like I get like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. Which it's obvious I did enough. Like one of my daughters is a university professor. Like, I mean, it's obvious I
Amazing.
did enough, but I'm like, it's so extra, all this stuff now. So I'm
Hmm.
glad
Yeah.
when we started, that's how it was.
It is, but also one thing I like to tell people is it's just like everything else in life. You can't believe everything on Instagram. It may
It's so
look,
true, yeah.
it may, and I know if you're homeschooling, it's controlled chaos. There's no way you have this picture perfect homeschooling experience. Every family has some kind of control chaos that
Yep,
they're
yep,
dealing with.
yep.
Um, so then, how long have you actually been homeschooling for? Like, how many years do you have under your belt?
Oh, he just turned 37. So 33 years.
Wow,
Like
you are
I
a
should get like a
pioneer.
retirement. I should get like a retirement package or something. I don't,
You should.
I don't know if they offer that for homeschooling
but
moms.
I still have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old at home. So we're not quite done yet.
So, what have you seen then over the course of these 30 years changing for the better and also for the worst when it comes to homeschooling?
Yeah, I think for the better, there's so many opportunities for like you if whoever's unique talents, whatever unique talents or gifts, there is resources for that. I think that's amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
think the harder thing, like I mentioned, is just the comparison. And because there are so many resources, you think you need to do it all.
Oh, yep.
So
Yeah.
I speak at homeschooling conferences and I'm like, I'll tell myself I'm not going to buy anything. I have 35 years of stuff. Now I'm starting to like pass it on. Like if you come to my house, I'm like, leave with a box of curriculum. Not gonna go back to the third grade again. Um, but like I still will every conference, I'm like, oh, this is a really great book. Or now I'm buying stuff for my grandkids, which is pretty fun. But
Mm,
so the good thing is that there's whatever your child is interested in, there's something for them. The bad thing
Mm-hmm.
is there's so much stuff. It can be you think you need to do it all. And I often when I speak at conferences, I'm like, do some math, do some reading, do some
mhm,
history, and just have fun together as a family. You don't need to do all of it. One thing is that I'll say, like, I never taught my kids foreign languages in high school, which I know you're supposed to. But my daughter ended up moving to the Czech Republic after she graduated from college,
mm,
and she is fluent in Czech. And
yeah.
so
No way.
I never would have figured that out. So sometimes we think like we need to do everything, check all the boxes, but once they become adults, they can have their own things that they want to do and they'll develop their own habits and hobbies and all those types of things. So I think sometimes like just stick to the basics and focus on getting kids to love learning and don't feel like you have to do everything because first of all, you're just going to overwhelm them. You're just going to overwhelm yourself and then
Mhm,
they will figure out I didn't start writing books until I was in my early 20s. I didn't like it's not like I'm like, oh, mom, you're a bad mom because you didn't enroll me in writers classes or whatever, because that wasn't a thing.
mhm.
So just know that when they're adults, they can kind of follow the dreams that God puts on their hearts.
Without a doubt. And also, I took 3 years of Chinese, and all I can say is hi, and my name is
Yeah,
David. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I took the 3 years. I didn't really retain any of it. So, I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
it's like you said. Now, when it comes to all the options, and with all the, with your seven adopted kids, your three biological, I'm imagining each one has a different way that they enjoy learning, you know?
Right.
So with all this noise coming in and all this resource here, this curriculum, how do parents kind of cancel it out and then just focus in on like, hey, like you said, the math, the reading, here are the
Hmm.
things we're going to focus on, but then still find the faith that they're doing the
Yes.
right thing.
Yeah, that's so good. So we had three biological that went all the way through, and by the time they were like third or fourth grade, they liked online work. They would just
Mm-hmm.
rather
Mm,
sit on the computer, watch the videos, answer the questions because they could get that done quickly, and then they can go read their own books. They can go build.
mm.
And so they love that because they could just get it done. So
Okay.
I had a office that had like a wraparound desk, so I was actually writing books over in this corner as they're working on their online, and I
Oh,
was
wow.
help them. So that was great. And then they could get it done in like 2 hours, their online
Yep.
work, and then just have the day to explore and read and watch documentaries, like all the things. So they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of in charge of their own. And then when we adopted the kids, though, it was a little bit different. Four of them are dyslexic. We have a couple with ADHD from our adopted kids. And then
Wow.
it was homeschooling at one time, because we adopted a newborn, and then when she was two, we adopted a 2-year-old and 5-year-old. And when they were a little bit older, we adopted 11-year-old, 13-year-old twins, and a 15-year-old. So at one
Wow.
time, I had from a 5-year-old to a 15-year-old. And there's no way I could have done like a kindergarten curriculum, a first grade curriculum, a
Mm-hmm.
third grade. So there just was not possible. So what I did, and it ended up being good because I love reading out loud. I'm an author. I mean, I just love books. And so one of the curriculums that I use is Sunlight, and it just comes with all the books. And I would pick like a seventh or eighth grade level for the read out louds, and they're all just like classic books, really good books. And I would just sit them all around the table, and we would always do Bible first. We would have a prayer time, have a prayer journal, and then I would just read for like 2.5 hours. So I'd read all the history,
Awesome.
literature, and then they had like one would be playing Play-Doh, one would have beads, one would be painting. And my husband would walk down and he's like, how can you even concentrate to read? Because there's 7 kids like all doing stuff. And I would just read and he goes, are they even paying attention? And I would stop and ask a question and they were like, because they
Mhm.
were just they needed to have their hands moving
Yep.
and just like zone them out and read. And it was interesting. So our 15-year-old, we adopted her. She was a sophomore in high school when the adoption finalized. And that next year, her ACT score went from like a 19 to a 26. And it was from me because I was reading like classic books, and it
Hmm.
was because even at school, like she would read a part of a book or one book for the whole year. And
Yep.
I was reading
Yep.
like
Mhm.
multiple books a week. And so
Yep.
that was huge. And then the younger kids, they like when my one son who's dyslexic, he in dysgraphia, he can't write very well. But I would tell him, tell me a story. The stories he'd come up with at like 9 were like very complex. And because I've been reading out loud.
Yep.
Or our one daughter who had an IEP, so she had been in foster care and was in like a special education classroom, very low grades, struggled with reading. Her speech therapist, after a year with me homeschooling, did a vocabulary test, and she was at a college level for all these words. And the speech therapist was like, I don't
No
even know what
way.
these words mean. She's like, how do you know what these words mean? She's like, my mom reads us old books. So I think so many
I
times
love that.
people think like you need to get the workbook, you need to get this,
Yeah.
and really just me reading out loud, they were getting a lot of it. Now they had their own little math, they had their own spelling stuff. So we were doing the stuff that was individualized,
Sure.
but the whole thing was me just like reading all these books out loud. And we did a lot of missionary stories, and so
Hmm.
they were just over here for Father's Day a couple days ago when we recorded this. And they were talking about the missionary stories again and the ones they loved and the stories that they were remembering stuff from. And I'm like, those are the things that stick with them, not
Yep.
the worksheets. Another thing I say is if you're homeschooling, if your child can tell you the answers, don't make them do the worksheet. Like,
Hmm.
if they can just tell you whatever biology questions or whatever, if they can just tell you, don't fight with them because a lot of it is they don't like writing, and then just use the actual writing for actually handwriting, or write a letter to their aunt, or write a poem
Hmm.
to someone. Because the things that we fight over, there's a reason why they need to do that, like in public school, because there's 30 kids, and you need to be able to look at the paper and know what the kid knows. If you're sitting at the
Hmm.
table with them, just ask them what they know.
Yeah.
And I would say
So,
from personal experience, I if there's a worksheet involved with it, I check out before it even begins.
exactly, yeah.
You know, like I check out before it even starts. But having the conversation, I can. So I'm just what you're saying is so true. But I do want to kind of go deeper on one thing you said, and I don't think we've ever talked about it on our podcast. But it's the dyslexia. You know,
Hmm.
it's really common. And how do you go about, you know, making sure that they're learning, but also instilling the confidence that this isn't going to be something that's going to hold them back in the long run, that they're still just as capable to accomplish their dreams as everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting because, like my older three, like my daughter, I taught her to read at 3. And
Wow.
so it was, and then we adopted, and all of a sudden I had the 3 younger ones. They did not learn how to read. I'm like, I've done this before. Like, what's going on? So I think the first thing is seeking help. Like, if
Okay.
you can see that there's struggles there, seek help. So actually, our pediatrician wrote prescriptions. I didn't know this was a thing for speech therapy, which helped with reading. I didn't even realize like that was a thing, but she did. And so
Wow.
the insurance gets involved anyway. It can help pay for it. Um,
Okay.
but when so that's why another reason why reading out loud, because they would maybe reading at a first grade level, but they could understand books at a sixth grade level. So
Great point.
it was that was, but we also got the speech therapist that really helped with the reading help, and I didn't realize that speech therapy also covers reading, but it
Yeah, I
does.
didn't know that. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
so there at least our therapist that was one of the things she did. And so just getting professional. So it made me feel like, oh, I'm just not a bad mom because I can't teach this kid to read. Like they're struggling for the professionals too. And then two of them had eye tracking issues. So when we went
Mm.
to the ophthalmologist, he's like, is there any issues? I'm like, well, they have dyslexia. So their eyes weren't tracking together. So one eye would be on one word and one eye would be on another word. So they
Wow.
go to
Whoa.
eye therapy. That'd go in every week or twice a week and do eye therapy at the eye doctor's office. And so that was super helpful. And then we did audiobooks, reading out loud, watch a documentary. So they can still learn even though reading is a struggle. And don't try to push it. Like if it's really hard, find other ways to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My son that I mentioned before had dyslexia and dysgraphia. His we went to a co-op for a while, and his teacher, he's supposed to write a story or an essay a week. I'm like, this kid can't like write a sentence. He's just like, you pretend you're his secretary and you just type. And so I'm like, the first time I sat down with him, I'm like, okay, tell me a story. And it was this certain prompt. And and he was probably like 8 or 9. He's like, the wind hitting the castle walls sounded like angry wolves. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was in my head.
Wow.
So I think like we just think just because they can't, their eyes aren't working or whatever's
Mhm.
hard with dyslexia that they're dumb. No, he's like, and so I would sit there and type, and finally, after 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, wrap up the story because like so, and it's interesting now because he's a teenager. The one thing that helped him the most was actually getting a cell phone. At first,
Really?
when he was just with our family, but he has to like communicate with his friends, like where are we going to go for basketball?
Yep, yep.
And so he often does voice to text, but he has to read the responses that come
Mhm.
back to them. And actually, that's improved his writing
Mhm.
more. I mean, his reading more than anything. And I sometimes forget because we text back and forth, or what time are you done with football practice, and all the things, and he responds. Like we were at a restaurant, and he turns to his sister, goes, "What's this word?" And she's like, "Spaghetti." He's but it made me realize, like, oh, there's still issues.
Hmm.
Just learn how to compensate so
Yeah.
that I forget. And he does online classes, so it reads to him. He can do voice to text back, and so he's learned to compensate a lot, which he'll need to do through
Of
life.
course.
So
Of course.
there's so many resources now that can help
Mhm.
people, that I think is great. And just remembering like, oh, there is some struggles there, but I kind of almost feel like he's fixed, but obviously when he had to have his sister help him at the Italian restaurant read what the things were, then I realized like, oh, okay, there's still some issues there.
And yeah, I would say also too, and I'm sure you're gonna agree, he we're how God made him. He
Exactly.
doesn't need to be fixed. He's built
Exactly.
in the perfect image just the way he is.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's awesome. And then again, we don't have to, this isn't like legal advice or anything. I want to say it before, but you said that they can write a prescription for speech to help, and then insurance can help with paying
Mhm.
for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
how
just
I
wanted to
found out
highlight
about
that
it.
one more time.
At least where I'm in Arkansas, that's how it
Okay.
worked. Our pediatrician ended up being, and she just passed away, which makes me really sad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but we went to her funeral. Like we loved her much, like we totally loved her. But she was the best advocate because we don't know what we need. And I'd be like, this is going on. And she's like, okay, well, I could write a prescription and then they'll find a therapist for you. And I just didn't even know that we needed that, which is really great. So ask your pediatrician. I don't know. It might just be Arkansas. I don't think it is, but they have a lot of resources or like the eye tracking. There's a lot of things that
Mm.
you can check into that I didn't even think about. Like I had no clue that that was even a thing.
I'm going to ask you one more question on homeschooling. Then I'm going to pass the baton to Beth because she's the smart one out of us and she's a reader and writer.
Oh, stop.
Um, so when it comes with, as a homeschooling mom, you have all these different kids. How do you how do you give the reassurance to yourself that you are giving the adequate time to each kid? Because my mom did it with three, and it was a madhouse. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a madhouse. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
can't imagine with 10
Yeah.
how it
Well,
is.
three
So,
were gone. Like I only had seven that I was actually teaching at one time.
okay.
Yeah.
only seven. Only
Only,
seven, I
yeah.
guess. But how'd you give like the reassurance to yourself that you were doing everything and you were making sure that each kid is getting the time? Because I would
Yeah.
imagine that's got to be kind of weighing on you when you're
Yeah.
getting pulled in so many different directions. So what do you do to feel the confidence inside that, hey, you know what I'm doing is right, and I am giving adequate time to each kid to fill their needs?
Yeah, I think one of the best things was our very first homeschool conference that we went to in 1992. Like, this is really aging myself. In 1992, a guy got up there and said, like, the average child in school gets 1 minute a day of personalized attention from their teacher. And I'm like, oh.
So true.
And there's 30 minutes of taking roll, then you have lunch, and then you have recess. And so, but like one-on-one time is a very little. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I can give 10 minutes of one-on-one time, which usually they got more, but you know what I mean? If
Yeah, you're doing
that
10 times better.
exactly. So it's that, and then also having kids that had graduated, were adults, were doing
Mm-hmm.
really well. I'm like, okay, it worked the first time, and I never finished a curriculum. You start this, and then you go to
Yep.
this, and read in this book, and they turned out fine. And then I was talking to a friend who's a public school teacher. She's like, we never finish our books. I'm like, what? I just thought everyone finished the books. And so I think it's those things we have in our mind, like I'm not doing
Mm,
good because we didn't finish this curriculum, or we finish a curriculum but it takes us 2 years instead of 1 year, which is totally fine
Mm-hmm.
because
Totally
we
fine.
we went on rabbit trails and we went to library and got books on this other subject, and so that was super helpful. Um and and just like seeing, so they were actually the ones we adopted from foster care were in public school um when they were in foster care, so we couldn't homeschool them till after the adoption was final. So for
Okay.
6 months I had kids in public school, and the busy work of like do this do this multiplication, fill out this multiplication sheet, and all the ones that are even color green. Like, it was so much busy work that we would sit there till 10
mm,
o'clock at night having to do
mm,
this work. It was like I could ask her these multiplication questions in 1 minute and get the answers. And then she's crying because she has to turn it in and she has to have it all colored. Like, it was just a lot of
mm,
busy work kind of stuff.
mhm,
Uh-huh.
Which, yeah, that wasn't good. And then also, I think another thing that's important is that I made sure they had God's word first. So even if we didn't get to that math or whatever, like that was important to me, and they had that time where, especially with the ones we adopted, they were like, um, I I don't want to listen to this. They were older when they were adopted, and so then for them to appreciate that we spent time with God is a big difference.
So I know it says my last question, but I talk a little much, so I'm gonna ask one more. That transition from the public school into homeschooling, did the kids did they maybe fight you on it, or did they seem to enjoy the time when they made that transition? Because at such a later age, it is a
Yeah.
big transition, but did they seem to enjoy it more, or is it something that you had to kind of work them into and make them see why you're doing it?
Yeah, at first they were like, I'm gonna miss my friends, or and like especially the one in high school, she was a sophomore, like, you want me to sit at this table and you're gonna read to me? I'm like, yes, ma'am, that's what we do, and you're gonna hear the Bible stories. And yeah, so after like a couple weeks, they were like, oh, this is cool. Like,
Uh-huh.
mm,
been till, because when they were in public school, I was having to get them up at 6:30 for them to get ready, to get their
Yep.
lunch, to get to the school. And so they're like, oh, I can sleep till 8:30. Okay. So they kind of like,
I
they
think I like
totally,
this.
then they got into it. And then when they started seeing like the speech therapist, it's like, wow, this is incredible. They saw a difference. Um, so I think there was of course days they didn't want to do it.
Of
There was
course.
fights we had. One of our daughters went back to high school for her senior year because she just didn't
Okay.
want to go to school.
Okay,
And
that's fine.
now she's like, I wish I would have stayed and did homeschool. So it's also at that age where I'm like, I'm not going to fight you every day. If you think
Mhm.
this, now that she's 23, she's like, I was so stupid. I should have. So, but that's okay. Like, that kids are going to go through that kind of stuff too. So, and I tell when I speak at conferences and stuff, I tell people that, like, there's not going to be like every kids are like, please, mother, teach me. I
Yep.
just can't wait to learn from you. There are going to be those struggles, but usually later, even that's part of the growing process. We have time to disciple them and to talk through those things and work through those things.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Beth. I know you're excited to talk to her, Miss Beth. So why don't you go
Mhm.
ahead and get into it?
Yeah, sure. So just to kind of touch on your author journey, how did that start? And if you want to talk about some of the books you've written, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I actually had, well, actually right around the same time I started homeschooling, I had a friend who was writing a book. I remember sitting in the church nursery, our little kids are running around, and we were talking about something. And she said, "Oh, I'm actually writing a novel." I'm like, "What? Real people do that? That's so cool." Right away, something in my heart just like, "Woo, that's so cool. I want to do that."
Mhm.
Because I'd grown up loving to read. I was at the library all the time, and I grew up in a home. It was my mom and my stepdad and my little brother who were not readers. Like, no, I don't remember
Mhm.
reading to me, but I was at the library and I loved books. I love reading. So when she said that, I'm like, maybe that's what God made me to do because I just loved reading and books.
Mm,
So her and I, her name's Cindy, we went to like our first little writers workshop together. And then the next
so
year
cool.
we got money and went to a writers conference, Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference together. And
Mm,
being there, it's like I found my people. So
mhm.
even though I had five and under, like three little kids, five and under, I would take time in the afternoon. I would set up, again, aging myself, Barney on the VHS player in the corner watching Barney the dinosaur, and then I would have my computer and I would be working. And at first, I thought like I'm the worst mom ever. Like I'm not outside during these. Like I do like 2 hours a day would be my time, and I mean, I was in the same room. They had their stuff to play with, but as I started getting published, I mean, it took like 8 years. As I started getting published, they got to go to trips with me, book conferences with me.
Mm,
We had authors' friends visit and stay the night.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is an experience that most kids don't get. So then I
Mhm.
really saw that, you know, God's not going to be like, I'm calling you to this, but you're going to be a horrible mom and you're going to ruin your kids. You know,
mhm.
he called me to it, and it was to see them have experiences and opportunities that maybe they never would have before.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. And then, what genre do you focus on? Actually, I will insert this. I think Jamie Jo Wright recommended you to us. We had
Oh,
her
I love
on a couple months.
Jamie.
I know. I talked to her a couple months ago on here, and it was so great. And I think she homeschools as well. So, and she was
Yeah.
homeschooled. So that's super cool. But yeah, what genre do you focus on? And are you releasing anything new?
Yeah. So I started with World War II.
Great.
I love World War II is like my favorite thing to write about. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's yeah, just so
Yeah,
much
I get it.
in that time. And then I had a publisher say, "Oh, do you want to write Amish for me?" And I'm like, "Why would I want to write Amish?" But I remembered that one of my daughters, my oldest daughter, her friend, her friend's parents had left the Amish.
Oh,
So they
wow.
Okay.
they played homeschool basketball together and they had left the Amish. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So I told the publisher, like, I'll pray about it. And then literally the next day, I was out to coffee with my daughter and her friend walked in. We hadn't seen her in like 9 months. And I was
No
like,
way.
this is what? Soretta's here. And so I said, Soretta, like, maybe I should talk to your parents about being Amish. She's like, oh, they'd love to talk to you. Here's their number. And they lived like an hour and a half from us. And so I called them. I'm like, hey, I just would love to hear your story. They're like, we're going to be in your town tomorrow. We'll stop by. And so
No
literally, like,
way.
right, like within days
That's
of when they
crazy.
asked me. So then I wrote a whole bunch of Amish. And then I've done like a book on the Titanic. I've done a prairie book. I have split time. So some is
Oh,
modern
yeah.
and some is in the
Mhm.
past. So I've done a lot of fiction. Then when I speak at conferences and talk about adoption or parenting, people said, do you have a book about that? So then I started writing
Oh,
nonfiction and children's books. So I
that's
kind of,
amazing.
and I would say my audience is like conservative families that believe in like God and faith and family and want clean resources for their kids. And
Hmm.
so they just now because I speak at these conferences regularly and I know them and they know me, they'll be like, "What are your new books?" And they just buy them. So it's
Oh, that's so
I
cool.
build that audience. But you asked about new books. So I just had a new book release a week and a half ago, and it's the
Awesome.
third book in a series that I wrote with my son Nathan. So
Nice.
that was super fun. He loves writing. He's loved writing since he was little, and he loves speculative fiction, so like
Mhm.
sci-fi fantasy, and there was a conference, and I'm like, I'll go with you, Nathan, so you don't have to go by yourself. And I was like, what is this? And then it's so cool. And so we
Mhm.
actually wrote World War II books that are like if you have Frank Peretti
Oh,
meets
wow.
like Indiana Jones
Oh,
meets like World War II like historical documentary
so
all
cool.
together. It's that. So the first one is Breath of Bones, and this is so there's actually a Jewish legend. This is Prague in 1942. There's a Jewish legend about from the 15th century that the Jews, Rabbi Lowe, built a clay golem to protect the Jews from persecution.
Yes, I've heard this.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
golem, so what if the premise was what if during World War II they try to resurrect their own golem to protect them? So their
Oh,
golem's a robot
Wow.
with the heart of clay that comes from the original golem, and it's steampunk, so the Nazis have spider tanks, there's flying ships. So it's taking
wow.
true World War II because it actually has like newspaper articles from that time in history. Uh,
That's so
so I
cool.
went to newspapers.com and just scoured and found really cool articles from that time. And so tied in the true history, this one is about the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. He was
Mhm.
the only high Nazi official that had been assassinated during World War II, and he was assassinated by Czech underground resistance. And my daughter, she's lived in the Czech Republic for 13
Mhm.
years, so we love everything Prague, Czech
Yeah.
Republic. So that's this one. And
Oh,
then
so cool.
book two takes place in Italy. Um, Mount Vesuvius, which is what buried Pompeii, it also
Hmm.
erupted in World War II and took out a whole bunch of planes. Americans had after we had gotten control of Italy, Americans had a whole bunch of planes there and they got covered. Just like, so we said, what if something caused it to explode?
Mm.
There's a mystical cup. I actually interviewed a curator from Naples, and there was a cup called the Farnese cup that Hitler was after because it had been owned by like Cleopatra, ex Alexander the Great, this same cup, and he thought it had like powers to make him
Wow.
dominate. And so, like, what if he's after the cup and it stirs up all this, like, again, Frank Peretti-ish type of stuff. But when we were interviewing the curator from Naples, we were talking about it, and I said, "Is there anything I haven't asked you about?" He's like, "You haven't asked about the mafia." I'm like, "What are you talking about? The mafia literally helped the Americans invade Sicily." They
No
set up
way.
like they so the mafia that from New York City that was in prison, like Lucky Lucino, got these guys out of
Are
prisons.
you kidding me?
No, I'm serious. It's true. Yeah, they sent them back to
No
Italy
way.
and they sabotaged and they found so when we invaded Sicily, it's because the mafia had broken in and got
This
like
is nuts.
so it's in the book.
Ah,
It's in the book. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to read these. Oh,
it's
I've
so
seen
cool.
them. I've seen them on Instagram because I review books on Instagram. I don't know how I missed your stuff, but I've seen
Yeah.
those books and I have friends who love them.
Yeah. So anyway, it was like we were like, what are you telling me right now? The mafia. So the characters, so the first one is Katerina, she's a reporter, and Yosef is a descendant of the Rabbi Lowe.
Okay.
And then this one is Theodora, she's the mafia lady. And Dante's is like museum curator. She
Ah,
literally is the funnest person I've ever, Nathan and I wrote. Because she's like a lady mafia during World War II. She does stuff. I'm like, I would never say or do this. And so I'm dressing up with her. Next week we have this conference again, and you do cosplay, so you dress up as
oh,
people. I'm
fun.
literally dressing up as Theodora, the mafia World War II
Oh,
lady.
cool.
Love it. Love
And
it.
so then book three, this is the one that just released. It's like hot off the press. I think it's been out a week. Twist of Time takes place at the astronomical clock in Prague. And
Wow.
Jan Hus which is one of the early reformers. He was 100 years before Martin Luther on telling people like you can go to God yourself. You don't need to go to a priest, all these things.
Hmm.
He was in Prague. The same time he was there, this astronomical clock was being built. So like again, Frank Peretti-ish light versus darkness. And so what if
Cool.
astronomical clock was a doomsday clock that was counting down the end of time, and World War II was a culmination of that. And what if they have to try to stop it from ending time.
Whoa,
And the
that's so cool.
interesting thing was during World War II, the last battle in Europe was fought at the astronomical clock in Prague. So I
Really?
Wow.
there in December a couple years ago and go in behind the clock, see how it works, do the underground because underground Prague, and so all of these are like based on true stuff, but with just like spiritual warfare and
Oh,
flying
very cool.
airships and
Well,
robots and yeah.
no, that's awesome. And I do want to say, because growing up, I don't know if my mom's going to want me saying this, but my brother and I were pretty good at getting our sister to do the work for us, but
Oh yeah.
she hated history. She
Uh,
hated it. She had to do all of these things where, like, she would, she has to read a book, whatever. She wouldn't read it. She wouldn't finish it. And she was a reader.
yeah.
My mom ended up finding out that, like, if there's, I don't even know what's like the definition of it, but where it's based on a truth, but it's a
Yeah,
fictional story.
historical. Yeah, so
The
all my books are like that. They're like inspired by true stuff, but yeah,
That was the only way my sister would be okay to learn about history.
yeah.
And I remember the moment my mom found it was like something about like Abraham Lincoln and like a vampire or something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so my mom figured out, like, okay, well, there's true events that she's learning about. Who
Yeah,
cares if they're battling a vampire
exactly,
or they're
exactly.
battling, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, it's just a matter of getting them there. So I do think that that can help with a lot of families as well,
mhm.
especially for kids who maybe like to read, but when they're reading an autobiography, they're falling asleep.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to introduce my thoughts into it,
No,
but
that's exactly why I write it. So I've interviewed hundreds of World War II veterans. I've interviewed Holocaust
Wow.
survivors.
Oh.
I've like if I could I've interviewed a guy he lived in Montana. He was 96 when I interviewed him. This was 20 years ago. And his family were like some of the first settlers in this part of Montana that lived in a soddy, like the sod houses. And he
no
like
way.
so I
Wow.
love like anytime I could talk to somebody or like the Titanic, no one, those people are alive. But like the journals that don't get like nationally published, like
Mm-hmm.
I love going like when I was in London, I'm like, take me to the bookstore and let me find the little self-published or the journals or the
Mm-hmm.
that,
So smart.
that's the stuff I love. It's because the true like they're most amazing stories. Like the whole mafia thing, I'm like, are you joking me? Like,
Yeah, I've never
and
even
so,
heard that.
yeah, I didn't hear about it either. And now, I think there's a new book, like a nonfiction book about it, about the
Okay,
mafia.
okay,
And so yeah, we interviewed, Raffaella was the curator from Italy that we talked about. And I'm like, this is the most amazing thing that, yeah, it's just so fun to take that true history and then weave the story around it. So in my books, I would say if there's a date and a location, that really happened there. Like I'm not going to make
Mm-hmm.
a bombing raid if
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't happen during that time. So, which is tricky
yeah,
when you're figuring out a timeline and we're like, oh, like we're gonna have to move this back 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But so some of that stuff we had to we had to figure out, but it was also good because we know when someone reads it, it's actually the true history. In fact,
Yeah.
well, next year I think I'll just put it out there because we'll see. So next year I think we're going to try to do some history tours for
okay,
families where
okay.
we go to Prague and we go to these places.
Wow. So
Because I'm
cool.
like, people are going on vacation anyway. Let's
Mhm.
learn about history, and I could show them this is where Reinhard Heydrich was assassinated. This is where the
Mm-hmm.
parachutist who shot him hid. This is where the Nazis tore down this thing. This is
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
if you're going to be on vacation anyway, come. And so
Yep.
I'm working with someone right now try to get that, but I think that's so important if you can learn it in a way that's interesting. And like history is so interesting. The dry facts is like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what date that was? If they know ordinary people had to go out of
Mm-hmm.
their way to save lives, to help other
Yeah.
people, I mean, that's what matters. If you don't need to remember the exact date of something.
No, and also too with that, there's something because we didn't take many vacations growing up, but we did go play this tournament in like New York, and we were from Florida
Hmm.
when I was 12. But what my mom did was she stopped on all the way back in all the spots where the
Yeah.
pilgrims, you know what I mean? And then it got
Oh,
us
that's cool.
to, when you're doing it, you're immersing yourself in it, but then you're also starting to like create a picture in your head of like, oh my gosh, these guys arrived. They didn't have anything. They had to, you know, and you start to really understand
Yep.
what they were going through. So what you guys are doing, I think, is amazing because it's you're putting the kids inside of history rather
Yeah.
than just being that, oh, okay, on March 4th this happened,
Exactly.
you
It
know.
doesn't mean,
So
and they won't remember it. Like it has,
no,
we remember stories,
That's
and
right.
so like
exactly.
I was speaking in Kansas. I was speaking at a Christian school in Kansas, and so I had three of my kids with me, and I'm like, oh, Laura Ingalls Wilder. Like, so we went to their little house where
Oh, that's so
just I
cool.
never replica of the little house, but the well that Pa dug. And I'm literally standing there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like Pa Ingalls dug this well. And we're just
Mhm.
like, and we go inside and I'd read that out loud to the kids. And my little guy, he was like 7 at the time, the 15-year-old was like 7. And he walks up to the lady. He's like, Jack died. That's the dog in the book.
Yes,
And I'm like,
yes.
this was 200 years ago, kid, or whatever. Like, but to him, like, we just read it and we were
Mhm.
there.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So, and then we went and saw my grandpa's was born in Kansas and his family had 11 kids and they had a farm. And then during the Dust Bowl, they moved to California. And so we went to where his farm was and we saw his school was actually standing. This was like 7 years ago
Wow.
now. Now it's not. We were just up there this year again. But then we saw like every time there's a historical marker, like your mom, every time there's a historical marker, it was like, like and like these are the tracks from the Oregon Trail. Like there's still
Hmm.
ruts from the Oregon Trail and stuff. And so yeah, that's then when they know like, oh, this happened and that happened, like they can see it. They have a place
Hmm.
for that.
Yep.
And even locally, we live in Arkansas and there's this in our we just moved like 15 miles away from the town we were in, and there's this little cemetery that I know that Civil War
Oh, wow.
casualties are buried there. And I told my husband, like, we were out on a date night, and I'm like, we need to stop there. I want to go in there and look. He's like, let's wait for the daytime. I'm like, no. But anyway, so we need to go
That's
back. But it's
funny.
that type of thing. Like, even in everybody's town, wherever you live, there's some kind of history that you
Of
can,
course.
you know,
Well, and two, sunlight, I use sunlight, and I still say that still has an impact on me as a 23-year-old after graduating. And the books in sunlight were
mhm.
absolutely life-changing. And that sounds dramatic, but I have been rereading them as an adult, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough, especially with the living history books. They're incredible.
Yes, yeah. And the YWAM, when they do the YWAM missionary books.
Mm-hmm.
I actually
Yes.
knew Janet and Jeff Benj, who wrote those. I always say the
Mm-hmm.
cover books. I was just with them a couple weeks ago.
Oh
Uh,
my
but like
goodness.
Gladys Aylward, my daughter
Oh,
who is in, she went to the Czech Republic as a missionary, and when she was 8, she's like, I want to be a missionary, and it's so cute when they're 8,
oh yeah.
and then they turn like 22, and they're like gone. But we were still like again a couple days ago, they were still talking about these books, and so
Mm-hmm.
and with so many
Yeah.
books, I'd be like crying at the end, and my kids are like, "Mom,
Yeah.
you can't,
My
can
mom was the same
can
way.
you read a book without crying?" And we'd be like, "No." So they're really good books. Yeah.
They are. Yes.
You have any more questions on the author side of the thing, Beth?
I think I'm good. That was awesome.
And all right, so I'm going to transition us back because we had a conversation before we started recording about your own journey and how sometimes moms forget to put themselves first. So if you could give us the quick recap of everything you went through and kind of how you are where you are now and how
Yeah.
you got there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a writer. I've been writing. My books have been published since 1999 was my first one. So it's a sitting job. You're sitting here working on the computer, homeschooling kids, taking care of kids. And so over time, I just did not take care of myself. Well, I had gained a lot of weight. I was tired all the time. You're feeding a big family and running them
Yep.
to sports stuff and wasn't. And so finally, it was 2023. We went to Washington, D.C. And this is something I've always wanted to do with my kids, walk around Washington, D.C. And I was 90 pounds overweight and so exhausted. My feet were killing me. I couldn't keep up with my family. Like I'm just like I'm like, and this is finally I'm living the trip that I've always wanted to do, and I just want to go back to my hotel and just take it.
Mm.
So exhausted. So when I got home, I was like, what do I do? And I tried like a smoothie thing. Like there's so many things. You're just trying to figure it out, and
Yep.
then you have to prep stuff and do stuff. And so my friend Amber, she's a health coach, and so I'm like, Amber, what did you do? And it's basically eating small meals 6 times a day, making sure you get protein,
Yep.
Mhm.
cut sugar for 3 years, and I don't miss it
Nice.
at all. Don't even care about
Wow.
it. Drinking lots of water, and like, and so it's like these simple things, but because she's my coach, she's like the accountability. And so I
Mm-hmm.
actually do that for other people now. So if you go to my Facebook page, I have a link there if anyone's interested in chatting with me. But it's basically we tell you how it works, eat these things, and then I just text people and check up on them. That's it. My coaching's free. And so really it's just I know how different I feel now because
Hmm.
I got healthy, I eat better. I this year, so the first year I took me about a year, a little bit over a year to get off 90 pounds. And then last year was just like keeping my habits, making sure I'm not gonna gain it back. And this year I'm like, I'm almost 55. I'm gonna get strong. So I've been walking, exercising, going to the
Love that.
chiropractor. So like this last couple weeks I'm going to, you guys know Orange Theory?
Oh yeah,
It's
of
like
course.
intense. I like,
It's
and
intense
everyone
for
in
sure.
there is like half my age, and I'm just like up there jogging. I'm like, who would have thought like 3 years ago when I was like barely walking through Washington D.C. that I'm there? And so just continue. Like you're not going to get there overnight. It took me 3 years to get where I am now, where I can actually go work out for an hour at Orange Theory. But just get started because now I have grandkids running around that I'm playing with and spending
Yep,
time with. And I want to be the young grandma having fun with them and not like sitting there watching them play. So
without a doubt. And then I do want to encourage people too, because there's something different when you're working with somebody that's been through what you're
exactly.
experiencing right now. So having you in the corner for them is huge because you've had to battle those sugar cravings.
Oh
You've
yeah.
had to be okay, well, I got to have six little meals. And if anyone's ever tried meal planning or being actually conscious when it's a full-time job, you gotta okay, I gotta plan this one here. Okay, I can't go get lunch there because that's not healthy. I gotta do this, you know what I mean? Having someone
Hmm.
that's already walked that path,
And
I
we have
think
some
is
easy things. We have things they can purchase, things that we can point them to that make it super
love it.
simple, that have all the macros they need. So that's what you need, just like someone and like Amber is my coach. I still like talk to her all the time. She's like, "How are you
Mm-hmm.
doing?" She's still checking in on me. And like the first time we had a kid birthday party, which I have 10 kids and grandkids. There's a birthday party like every 3 weeks. And the first time after I cut out sugar, I'm like, Amber, we're gonna have pizza tonight. We're gonna have cake and we're gonna have ice cream. And she's like, you've had it before. You know what it tastes like. You don't need it. I was like,
Mm,
oh, you're right.
wow.
I don't need, like, I've had it before. And it was like a store-bought bakery cake. It wasn't even like a homemade whatever cake. It was just like
Right.
in those little whatever bakery aisle.
Uh-huh.
And that was just like so freeing for me. Like, oh yeah, I don't need it because we get all up in our head. Like everyone else is having fun,
Hmm.
enjoying this. Well, I'd rather enjoy like running around with my grandkids than
Without a
Yeah.
doubt.
that moment. So yeah, it's really, yeah.
It's that long-term gratification compared to the short term when you're just
Mhm.
getting it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, we are closing in on an hour here. So what I would like you to do is just kind of give our audience, obviously, is homeschooling families,
Hmm.
just give them maybe a little word of advice or a final thought to leave them on that someone who's had 10 kids is
Yeah.
working, you know what I mean? It's a full-time job being an author. It's not something easy. What can you do just to kind of final thoughts for the families out there?
Yeah. I think first of all, I think one thought is if God gifted you in something, for me it was writing. Like
Mm-hmm.
when your kids see you pursuing that, then they know that they can pursue the dreams that God has for them. So not, I mean, I definitely had my set apart homeschooling time and then afternoons were my writing time. So I was giving them the time, but also they saw me like following my God-given dreams. I think that's super important.
So
And
important.
then also know that kids are hard and there's going to be struggles, especially
Mm-hmm.
like during the teen years and us with some of the girls that during their it was just, and they'd been in foster care, and they'd been like, and then there's all the hormones and all the emotions, and there was seasons where I was like, this is not working. I don't know what we're gonna do. They would just, and now, like I fought through. I still showed up. I loved them,
Mm-hmm.
And now they're like, Mom, you're the best. And in fact, I just posted on social media. I had taken a screenshot. I blocked out the name, but I'm like, I just talked for 55 minutes with one of my daughters who just told me everything about her life. And this was the one in high school that didn't want anything to do with me, that didn't like me, that didn't want to do work. And so, like, just know that this season, even if it's hard, just love them. And then also, they're like they're gonna make mistakes, and it's not
Mhm.
it does not reflect on you. And
Mhm.
they will probably realize when their brain develops more that
Without a doubt.
so I think we just try to take on too much. And
Yeah.
I don't know one homeschool family that hasn't had a kid that struggled or kid that's, and you're thinking like,
Mhm.
what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't, because they're human and we're all sinful.
Yep.
Human people mess up and still love them through it. Yeah. So that's my encouragement.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure we'll have the
Yeah.
link for your workout stuff. We'll have the link for all your books in there as well. Um, Thank you for taking your time. And
Yes.
I
Yeah, you guys
do
are
want to,
great. I enjoyed it.
well, thank you for that. But I do want to give you props because, A, when you started, it wasn't the same as it is today.
Yeah.
And B, to do it with that many kids and still find time to write and
Mhm.
take care of the kids. It's super impressive. And I mean, you're a blessing to your kids, obviously, but I think you're a blessing too for homeschooling families to see it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible, you know?
Yep.
So thank you for taking time. Once you pop
Yeah.
off here, we'll do the introduction and thank you again.
All right. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.